I believe the daily stand-up meeting should be a really short, efficient meeting, full of discussion. But I know most stand-ups aren't that way. I've been to quite a few daily stand-ups which were a total waste of time. People just going through the motions, telling the other people what they're working on, nobody actually listening, nobody interacting, everybody hating it. Unfortunately, this is quite a common problem, but it's easy to fix. Let's talk about the origin of the daily stand-up. Let's see what we're trying to achieve with it, and let's see what we can change to make us not dread the daily stand-up. The daily stand-up comes from extreme programming. It is a daily meeting with the entire team, which you do standing up to discuss the flow of today. All of these things are in here. Everyone stands up in a circle to avoid long discussions. The purpose is to have communication around the whole team. It was incorporated in extreme programming because it couples really well with the other practices and principles of extreme programming. The more you do test-driven development, pair programming or mob programming, and trunk-based development, continuous integration, the more you do them, the more you need your daily stand-up to sync your work because you're cooperating so tightly together. You need to discuss the flow of today. The original recommendation says to stand up and to stand in a circle. Standing up because it's a bit more uncomfortable to stand for long periods of time, and it also gives more oxygen to the brain, so you're more active and more participating. And in a circle because you're more engaged with the others. You can more easily look them in the eye and actively discuss with them. The daily stand-up was invented to counter too many meetings and to counter ineffective meetings. There's lots of situations where you've probably experienced them, where you're only listening in to a meeting. Your time is probably being wasted there. Or meetings which are very difficult to schedule now that you are a remote team in maybe different time zones. You've probably also experienced meetings where not everybody, not the whole team is attending. Therefore, it's breaking shared ownership of the product and the code if not everybody is there. The daily stand-up can be very effective if everybody is there. One of the points is to eliminate other meetings. I will argue a stand-up is most effective if you do it really early in the morning, because humans tend to forget things overnight. That's okay, but stand-up can also function as a refresher in the morning. Oh yeah, I was working on this together with this person, it's time to switch pairs, or who can do my code review. Stand-up is there to increase collaboration. After extreme programming, Scrum has incorporated the daily stand-up as well. They called it the daily Scrum. You can find it in the Scrum guide where it's specified. It defines it as a 15-minute meeting to discuss the next 24 hours. And the purpose is to inspect progress towards the sprint goal. And to adapt the backlog, to think of scope, to discuss the scope with your product owner. This is a slightly different, nuanced version of the extreme programming daily stand-up. But you see many things it shares with extreme programming. It improves communication, it identifies impediments, that is blockers, it promotes quick decision making, and it eliminates the need for other meetings. Most teams don't actually do Scrum. They say they do, but they're doing sort of Scrum-ish. If you have a list of unrelated user stories in your sprint backlog, multiple sprints in a row, then you don't have a sprint goal. Then you're not doing Scrum. Maybe if you're in this situation, you should Scrum harder, take it more seriously, get to related user stories and a sprint goal, or if this is difficult or impossible, you should move to Kanban instead. There's loads of styles to do with daily stand-up, but I'll discuss the two most common ones: people-focused and story-focused. Let's talk about the people-focused style first. There used to be 3 questions specified in the Scrum guide on the daily Scrum. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to finish today? And do you have any impediments? Do you have any blockers? This is not advised to do anymore because it yields a status update Scrum. It yields people not listening, but people only going through the motions. They're just saying what they will do today or what they have done yesterday. And it's not really that interesting if you're only giving a status update and you're not seeking the interaction or the collaboration. The 3 questions only make everybody report on their own thing. It doesn't make people think about the user stories and how to get them done. A common result is that everybody is busy, but nobody is making progress. It increases the individualism that you have in a team. Instead of answering the 3 questions, you could also just ask one question. Do I have any blockers? Do I have any impediments? It's more of a Kanban thing to approach it in this way, but it's still a valid thing. If you want to limit yourself to just one of these questions, then I think this is the most important question. When you have a people-focused stand-up, I do recommend that you stick to a default order of iterating through the people. You always go clockwise, you go alphabetic, you go last person in the room. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you stick to it, agree on it, because it will make it more efficient. The second style is story-focused. Instead of iterating over people, you're iterating over stories. You go over the board from right to left and from top to bottom. You discuss the things that are nearly finished, you discuss them first. To what can you do to get them across to the done column. And you discuss the items that are not yet started or that are just started at the end of the meeting. They're less important from a perspective of getting things done. This style is also known as work items attend, because yes, the people attend, but the people facilitate the fact that we're discussing the user stories, the work items. It makes you focus on finishing things. And this suits people who are working together with multiple people on a story. The more you do test-driven development and pair programming and mob programming, the more this style will suit you. Personally, I like the story-focused style better, but that's probably also because I've seen the people-focused style fail so often. Part 4, what not to discuss during a daily stand-up. And I want to start here with saying giving any information that is either irrelevant or already visible on the board is information you should not give. If you start by telling, hey, I'm this person, I'm working on that story, and this is the status of the story, you could just by looking at the board get all that information. You're using lots of words to say nothing, to give no information. You think this goes without saying, but it is very easy to fall into the trap of irrelevant status updates. Just people who want to participate and have a feeling they need to say something as well. Then they just start to talk and use up words. It's important to not discuss the things that are not relevant for everybody. If a discussion that you have in the stand-up becomes a one-on-one discussion between two people, then there's this best practice. It's called take it offline. It's a sentence that you say where people stop discussing the topic right now. You go through the rest of the topics, and then after the meeting is done, those two people continue their conversation to still resolve the issue, but they don't need to have the rest of the room listening in. That's the kind of optimization that we're trying to make here. There's nothing wrong with talking about these things. It's probably important to talk about, and you should, but not within the larger group. Some teams use a timer, a 1-minute timer per story or per person, depending on what style you have, to limit the discussion you have. In general, I recommend to stop discussing anything that makes you hate the daily stand-up, that makes you not discuss the real blockers and instead give status updates. Stop mentioning anything that makes people tune out, not actively listen to you anymore. Part 5, what to discuss. The original idea in extreme programming was to literally stand next to the board, where you can visibly see the status and owners of all the user stories. Remote nowadays, we often do this while one of us is sharing screen and we have our Jira board or whatever. In the core, the daily is for me about discussing blockers and collaboration. What is a blocker? When do you have a blocker? You have a blocker if you are waiting, if you are inventing other work to do because you are waiting for somebody else to finish something, for somebody else to send you something, if you are depending on somebody to do a code review for you. All of these are blockers, but it's also a problem if you've been working alone on something for more than 4 hours. You officially need help. You can call this a problem or a blocker, it doesn't matter, but the whole point of shared code and working in a team is that you don't optimize around individuals who have their own story. That's not code ownership. So when you've gone for 4 hours without any help, pairing, code review, some kind of check-in where are you still going in the right direction, that question is answered somehow, you need to start discussing this in the stand-up. And I recommend everybody to pay attention to other people. Is this person going on for more than 4 hours by themselves already? Okay, then let's discuss. Let's see and figure out where you're at. Are you still going in the right? If you're going in the wrong direction, then we need to start deleting code. We need to track back and need to figure out where you went wrong. I recommend to make this a rule in your team. And this becomes a lot easier if you have stuff like trunk-based development, test-driven development. You take really small steps. Besides discussing blockers, impediments, the stand-up is mostly about discussing collaboration. Who are you working together with today? What does your day look like? Especially if you have a remote team with different time zones. What time is your lunch? How does it schedule up with our lunch? Do you need a product owner to discuss and renegotiate the scope of this story because it's not going to fit? Or you actually have more time. Do you want to take on another story, or do you want to increase the scope of this one? Or do you need a UX designer to help you with the design of something? Do you need people to pair program with? If you're pair programming or mob programming, you need to switch pairs every now and then. You need to switch roles. You need to figure out all this together. If you're not doing pair programming, then you should do a code review. It's either pairing or code review, I always say. That means that you need to find the person who can do a code review for you. If you know, hey, I'm going to be done, I'm nearly done, maybe an hour or so, who is going to be ready for me to help a code review to get this through? Stories that are nearly finished should always take priority over stories that you just started. So if somebody is working on something that they just started working on and you're nearly done and you need a code review, they should stop doing that and help you get your story across to the line, across to done. It's pretty important to discuss your schedule for the day. When you have your lunch, when you have meetings, when you have other interrupters, they need to be discussed because they will be a problem for collaborating with other people. If you are suddenly done during lunch and that other person is waiting for you because they're in a different time zone to start the code review, to do a certain handover or start to collaborate with you, that is a problem that creates lots of inefficiencies. You can always ask the question, does anybody need any help? When you're not doing the strict extreme programming where you're always pairing, you should at least have a work in progress limit so that you encourage collaboration. And the work in progress limit is having only 2 stories in progress, for example, at a time maximum. That means that if you have 4 developers, you should always be working together and helping each other out, whether that's pair programming or not. My last recommendation is to prepare your daily stand-up. 5 minutes before it starts, just think of what you want to discuss with other people. Don't think of what you want to tell other people. Really empathize with your listeners. Is the information you're about to tell them, is it relevant for them? How can they use this information? If your words don't spark discussion, then maybe it's not relevant. If you can't phrase the thing you want to bring into the stand-up, if you can't phrase it as a question, maybe let it go. The trick is to think of a stand-up as the daily meeting where you agree on how to work together. Don't think of it as a status update. That kills the value of it. And that's it. I hope this was helpful. I hope you liked it. What are your stand-ups like? Please let me know in the comments and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.